and we're going to be doing a mixed media project. So I want to show you how to build up layers of paint and inks and maybe a bit of splattering and some stamping, and we're just going to put loads and loads of techniques into this and build it up. And I'm going to do a piece that is going on a journal page, but you could easily do this on a canvas board or a canvas or whatever surface you want to go with. So come and join me. So I'm going to start off with some lovely cotton rag paper, and I've chosen this because it's such a beautiful surface to work on and is really nice and absorbent. So you can float lots of different paints and inks on these. So I'm just using tearing ruler so that you get a perfect edge. So when I'm tearing, it's always typical, isn't it? I try and tear and then it goes off at the side. So these tearing rulers are brilliant to use for that. So I'll just show you again. You can actually tear nice little small strips and just pull it towards you a little bit at a time, and you get this beautiful decal edge, which I love. So these are really, really useful. So you get a set of 2 in those. And there's another one here. The decorative part is not included. I just put this sticky tape on because I tend to put them on my desk and then I can't find them because they're clear. Right, let's get started with our cotton rag. And I'm going to be using some vivid inks. So I'm going to just put a tiny, tiny drop, just 1 drop of Will Scarlet, which is a lovely red, Loxley Yellow, which is like a primary golden yellow, and then Little John, which is a blue. So you can see that we are only using the smallest amount possible. And then I'm going to just use a water spray, or if you haven't got water spray, just use a brush just to wet down your cotton rag paper. And you can see it's really, really wet. The cotton rag just accepts that. That's absolutely fine. And we're going to just put some water in with these inks because, as I said, they're really concentrated. You only need to use a little bit and you just need to add some water to them. So I'm just going to do that. I'm going to start off with the yellow. So I'm just going to drop some yellow in, and I'm not really thinking about where it's going to go because I do want the inks to sort of mix and merge. So I'm just going to put quite a nice amount of yellow on here. I'm going to dip into the water again, and let's come in with some of that gorgeous scarlet red. So let's get a good amount over here, and I want that to sort of run into the yellow. So let that come into there, and let's have a little bit round here. And then I'm cleaning my brush in between so that I don't contaminate my inks. And then I'm coming in with the blue. Oh, look at that. Isn't that gorgeous? And again, I'm just dabbing that on, and I'm just going in all the spaces basically. And then I want that to just run into that yellow. Look at that green. Wow, that's beautiful. And then let's put it into some of the reds so that we get like a dusty purple. Let's have a bit more yellow green over there with the yellow. I'm just going to put some more yellow in there to give us that lovely sort of greeny grey colour. And then we just want that to just run in together by moving that around. And then you just leave that to dry basically. And if it's a little bit too heavy, you can always pull out some of the colour there, but I'm just going to put that to one side to dry, and then I'm going to bring in my main piece here. So this is the main background I'm going to do. So let's take a brayer, and I'm going to bring in my paint mat. So my paint mat really should have been on my essentials list. I don't know why I forgot to mention it. So this paint mat is white, so it's great. You can actually see all the colours that you're using, and it's wipeable as well. Don't heat it with a heat gun, it will melt. So just keep it as a mixing palette basically. So I've got some lovely sunshine yellow. This is, no it's not, it's yellow submarine, I do beg your pardon. and we've got Townhouse Teal, and we've also got some Stroke of Midnight as well. So just tiny amounts. I've got quite a lot there, to be honest, but tiny amounts are always better. I'm going to start off with my brayer and the Stroke of Midnight. So I'm just going to push my brayer across here, and don't worry about what this looks like at the moment because we're going to build up layers. So don't be frightened of putting a good amount of paint on. Okay, so it's really dark at the moment, but don't worry about that. And then we're going to bring some of this Townhouse Teal in. There we go. So it's really easy just to get it covered. So that's good. So we've started covering it up, which is lovely. And then I always use some gesso. Okay, let me just get this gesso open and clean my spatula. So I'm just going to put some white gesso on here. So this is white gesso already mixed with water to create splashes. But I'm actually going to just mix that in. And then I'm going to bring in lovely yellow sunshine. So can you see how you get now this mixture of the yellow sunshine, the yellow submarine with the blue to get this gorgeous green coming through. So it's looking quite olivey now. So you can start to see some of the layers coming through. So I'm going to put a little bit more of the Stroke of Midnight on. And then let's have a few more of these splashes of gesso. So this is just watered down white gesso. There we go. So I'm just going to dry that off, ready for the next layer, and we're going to use some stenciling. All right, so now we've got our dark base on. So now it's time to actually bring this forward now. So I like to use a palette knife just to put some white back in. And I love the way that you get bits of different layers and textures coming through. So now it's time for a little bit of stenciling. So I'm going to use some of the white gesso, and I'm also going to use some of the Townhouse Teal as well. So I'm just going to use just a normal kitchen sponge for this, and I'm going to start with this stencil. So just pick up a little bit of paint, and you want to use a stomping technique. Just stomp it straight up and down. I'm just going to move that along and do a little bit of white as well to get started up with some stenciling. So we could go for a little spot stencil, which I think would work really nicely as well. So let's do a little bit of this here as well. It's all about making contrasts as well. So I'm going to take a tiny little bit of the Stroke of Midnight, which is a really, really dark blue. It's like a Payne's grey, basically. So again, isn't that a lovely contrast to what's gone before? And I'm going to go back to my other stencil and do just a little bit more on that. And I've got this ink left, so I don't want to waste this. So I'm going to take my blue and yellow together to make a green. And I want just a tiny touch of red, just to make it more of an olivey colour. Just a tiny touch of red again. There we go. So you see, isn't that just a lovely colour? So I'm just going to wipe my brush across the top and do a few little, let the ink just flow and drip down. It'll find its own way. Just so that I'm using up all of that lovely ink. And then I've got some blue coming down as well. To make some nice drips. So you can see that we're now building up all of those layers quite nicely. So I'm going to dry that off again, just so that I can stamp over the top now. And I sometimes think if you just, more is more on this, but if you stick with the same colour palette, we've basically got 3 colours. We've got 2 blues essentially and 1 yellow, and then we're using white. So I think if you stick with the same colour palette, it's going to be safe. As long as you don't start introducing, you know, every colour under the sun, I think you can't really go wrong. So can you see now we've got from the brayering all the way through the drips and everything, we're just building up those layers beautifully, and it adds that visual texture that is so popular with mixed media. So I'm going to do a little bit of stamping now. Now these are background stamps. I'm going to be using a VersaFine, and these are called Thin Lizzies. They're an acrylic block, and the stamps just peel off the laminate and cling to the block. And we make red rubber stamps, and these are just really brilliant for longevity. Look after them, they'll last your lifetime. So I'm just going to do a little bit of stamping textures just around the edges here, just to add a little bit more texture. And also it focuses the eye more on the centre as well. And all I do is I just give them a rub with a rag to take all the ink off. So that was 100 Little Circles, and this is one of my favourite, which is number 4 numbers. So this is a great stamp for just bringing in a little bit more interest around. And you can see that I'm just stamping a number of times, just using up all the ink, and then you get this sort of ghosting type of stamping as well, which is lovely. Now for my favourite bit. So I'm just going to cover up everywhere with some waste paper, and I'm going to get my white. So this is this was the end of a tub of white gesso, and in order to get the last little bits out, I put water to it, and then I thought, oh, that's the perfect consistency for splashing. So I actually keep this, and I've just written splash on the top. So the way I like to do some splashes is just use a fan brush and make it the consistency of sort of like single cream, I guess. and just do a few splashes around, and then hopefully I haven't ended up with it all over the place. So I'm going to set that aside to dry, and I'm going to bring in a fresh piece of card to go underneath, and I'm going to just do some stamping of some main images to go on. But that is a lovely piece, just an abstract piece, which would be really nice to use on framed on a wall. So let's just do a little bit of stamping. So I've got these squiggly flowers here. I want to stamp and cut out some images so that I can layer them on. So again, I'm using VersaFine. VersaFine is good for this technique because it's waterproof. So whatever I stamp and then I colour in, it's not going to make the ink run at all. So I just wanted to stamp a few of these, and at the same time I've actually also stamped and cut out some other shapes as well. So I'm actually going to colour these in with the inks that we used. So we've still got a little bit of red left. We've got a tiny bit of olive green there. So I'm going to just put a dab, one drop of Loxley yellow, and we need some more of the blue. So I'll just do one drop of the blue, which will be enough. So this time I want a small brush, and this is the easiest technique ever to do. So what you want to do is just paint with water the area where you want your ink. Okay. So this particular stamp, I've actually stamped and cut out, but I've actually used clear embossing powder as well. And the clear embossing powder is heat activated on top of the ink, and it creates like a barrier. So you just want to put a little bit of yellow at the top, just a stripe of yellow, okay? And then you take the tiniest amount of red and you just put the tiniest amount of red at the bottom. And the water that we've already put on does the work for you, because it just pulls that ink together, and you just leave that to dry. And then you get this really lovely graduated look, which will just be absolutely gorgeous. So this one isn't embossed, clear embossed, it's just the ink. But the beauty of the colours that we're going to use means that they won't cover up the line work, because they're translucent, you see, which is just brilliant. So I'm just going to do the same with this. I'm going to paint with water, and then I'm going to come in with some of the Loxley yellow, and then I'm going to take the red and mix that in. So I wanted to show you the difference between the card as well. So this one is stamped onto watercolour card. The one that I'm painting now is onto normal stamping card. So can you see how there isn't the same sort of flow of ink? So it's really interesting that you get different results with different card. So that's why I was using cotton rag to begin with at the beginning of the film, so that you could see how the ink just moves. I'm just going to put a little bit of blue there as well, so I can go over the top of the ink and it won't cover up the line work, but it's not going to mix. You get more of a line over the top. And then we can go in the middle there. So the difference between the two is quite a lot, isn't it? So if I show you on here as well, so this is, again, I know my water's a bit dirty, don't worry about that. So let's just go with that yellow again, and let's pick up a little bit of that orange, that red, sorry, and it will mix into that lovely orange. So you can see that this is a different sort of watercolour card as well, and you get a much nicer mix with it. So it is worth making sure that you keep your card in its packet so that you know what it is, because it's so easy just to go into your drawer and pick out a piece of card to stamp on, and then if you're thinking, oh, it's not really working how I expected, then it's usually the paper or the card that is different. So I'm just going to pop this in here. See, it's a much nicer, softer look than this one. So I would advise you to buy hot pressed watercolour card, and that way it's going to be smooth enough to stamp on. Hot pressed means it is pressed through rollers and so goes smooth. Okay, so we've got that one. Let's do this. Now let's hope we've got just enough of that olive green just to give us a hint of colour on these. So I'm not worried about it covering all of the leaf, because it's nice to leave a little bit of white just to give a highlight. Oh, is there enough? Just, there we go. Just enough to finish that off. There we go. And next I've got these lovely piece of woodology. Ah, oh, it's just fabulous. So I'm going to choose one of these and I'm going to paint this up. So this is the great thing about mixed media. You can just use anything that you like. So these are lovely pieces of medite. Medite is a type of MDF, medium density fiberboard, but it's a green option. It's carb 2 compliant and it's a lot safer health-wise. Okay, so with this one, I'm going to take some gesso, which is left on my mat, so I might as well use this gesso. Just to seal it all in, and I have to just get my luscious. So I'm going to use sparkling waterfall. So this is the powder that I've mentioned on the essentials video. So you just take a wet brush and you dip it into the powder and it sticks to the brush. And then you take your paint mat, find a clean area, and just add a little bit of water, and it becomes a paint, because what we've done is we've put binders in here and we've put pigment and we've also put mica in. So the mica is that lovely sparkly aspect of it, and we've got loads of pigment as well, so you get this absolutely beautiful look to it. So I'm actually going to, oh, I should have dried that first. Let me just give that a dry. So I'm just going to dab that on. Oh, look at the effect you get. It's just beautiful, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, perfect.
Yeah. And then I've also done a butterfly as well. So I'm going to start bringing all the different aspects together. So the first thing is, I normally leave the ink to dry naturally. Look at that, isn't that gorgeous? But I need this to be dry now, so I'm having to use my heat gun. But with all pigments, you'll find that when you dry it, any paint, it will go lighter, but you'll still get that lovely intensity of colour. Have you noticed, despite flooding it with all the ink, it's not gone through the back? So I'm going to bring in my tearing ruler. Let's put all this together. So I want quite a wide piece, I think, about there. Just place your tearing ruler down and start it off, and then just tear towards you and a little bit in the direction of the ruler. That's good. I think we'll go with a little bit of this as well. Just going to move this, it's distracting me. And then we want a couple of smaller pieces because we're going to layer these up. There we go. Then maybe this sort of size. All right, let's bring in our piece and let's start playing with these. So I've got 3 pieces and I want to sort of layer them together so that they create 3 little steps like that. And then I'm going to just place some of my images. I think I might do that. Actually, I don't need those others. I think I'll just stick with these. So generally, a good trick is to take a photograph of that now, because when you start gluing things down, sometimes you forget where you've put things. So that's a little tip. So I'm going to use some grab and go, and let's get this all popped together. So let's just pop this on here. Now, I'm leaving it so that the edges stick up a little bit because I want to see that lovely cotton rag and that gorgeous texture. Let's do it that way around, I think. That lovely texture of the edge of the paper, so that just sticking up slightly as well. I think that can go on there. Yeah, let's get this way around. I'll put a little bit more there. There we go. And this grab and go is really good because it just sets really quickly. Little tip for you, if you've got odd little cutouts, just put some grab and go on your paint mat. My paint mat's a bit dirty at the moment, so I'm just going to do this on a scrap piece of card and lay your piece on there, and then that will go nicely in there. And then let's just pop this one on. I'm just going to curl those up at the edges a little bit. And then this grab and go is made for sticking MDF down, so just put a little bit on there, just spreading it out a little bit. I think that just finishes it off. That's really good. Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much, and I really hope you enjoyed that. Now, remember, like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, which is Hobby Maker Tutorials on YouTube. And we'll see you next time.